take an action of the screen.
Yes, I'm just.
Well done. Thank you.
So welcome to the Cemetery Committee meeting on Thursday, July the 16th at 10 o'clock. Sorry, we're starting slightly late. And we'll move on to the first agenda. So the first agenda item today is the election of the chairman, followed by the vice chairman for the mayoral year 2020. Can I take nominations for the post of chair of the Cemetery Committee?
Brenda Canham.
Thank you. That's Jen.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Dennis.
Is there any other nominations?
Yeah, Councillor Hodgkinson, please.
Thank you.
No, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, and is there any other nominations? Chris, can I ask you to lead the vote on those two nominations?
Yes. Would you like me to do it on the poly or?
Yes, would councillors like to try the poly vote?
I have no idea what that is.
No, me neither. Let's go.
Okay, let's not then. Let's do it by hands up for this one, Chris.
So would you put hands up in the...
Well, basically just go through your list, Chris, and ask them for the vote.
Here we go then. So, Councillor Canham.
Myself.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford.
Brenda.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgkinson.
I'll vote for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hollis.
Brenda.
And Councillor Harvey.
Dave Hodgkinson.
Thank you. And Councillor Robinson.
Hodgkinson.
Okay, so that's 3-all. So, who's got the casting vote here, Ros? Is it the...
It's normally the mayor, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say the mayor.
Okay, I'll stick with my original vote, Chris.
Say again?
I'll stick with my original vote, Councillor Hodgkinson.
Okay, thank you. So that's decided then, Councillor Hodgkinson.
So I'm going to hand over to Dave, if that's all right.
Yes, that's fine, Ros. Thank you very much. I'd just like to say thank you to Brenda for steering us through the last year, and for Jen, who was the deputy there. So
I'd just like to say one thing. I've worked really hard on that cemetery.
Yeah.
And I'm very disappointed in the way that this council is going. So I am now going to leave the cemeteries committee. And when Chris goes off, I don't know whether you're going to be Cora, so the mayor will have to stay. Thank you. I'll come back. I am following suit. I am following suit. When you've got a successful chair that chaired a meeting and made an impression, I find it quite disheartening to have somebody else come in when there has been such a success on that committee. So I am now resigning from the cemetery committee.
You've resigned?
Yes, I'm resigning, Chris.
And Brenda, did you resign?
I have resigned, and I'll see you for allotments.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll see where that one goes.
Kieran.
Okay, so I think with those two resignations, Ros, can you advise me whether we're quorate or not?
Well, Mark, as the mayor, is a member of any committee. So as long as Mark stays, we've got you. But Chris, you've got to leave, have you, Chris? Harvey?
Yeah, I have, yeah. I've got to go about 15:15, but I hope I'll be back by 11, so I should be here for the allotments. But I mean, I'm really sorry. I have this medical procedure I have to go through, and I'm really sorry that Jenny and Brenda have decided to go down the road that they have. I mean, democracy is democracy. You have a vote. You have to put up the result sometime, don't you?
Okay, so can you just tell me, Ros, what the quorum is? Is it?
It's 3 for cemeteries.
It's 3. Okay, so we are quorate at the moment then.
You are.
So I will call for nominations for the vice chair of the cemetery committee.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Dennis Crawford, please.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I've got, those are
Are
from,
there any, I will ask it as a technical question. Are there any other nominations?
no.
Okay, so I'm assuming there are no other nominations, so therefore we don't need to have a vote. So congratulations, Dennis, you are vice chair.
Thank you, David.
Okay. So we'll move on to 13820, declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations?
No.
Okay, that's great. We'll move on. Apologies for absence. I think we are all
I had
here.
not
aren't we?
received, except I didn't hear Colin Harvey's not going to be here, so I'll give his apologies after the
Chris,
after
not
the
Colin,
vote.
Chris.
Chris Harvey.
Chris Harvey.
He's here, but he's apologising that he has to leave early, isn't he?
Fair enough. So I'm gonna put him as an attendance.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that he left the meeting at 9 minutes past 10.
Oh, is Chris leaving now then?
Yep.
Okay, Chris.
I'll see you at allotments. Bye.
Bye.
But we are still quorate, I believe, as long as Mark is here.
Yes.
Okay, good.
There's 3 out of the 5 that is on the committee.
Okay. Right, just move on to 14020, which are the minutes of the previous meeting held on 16th of January. We got those in. I will scroll down. I'm not sure if they're in this pack, are they?
No, they're not in this pack. No, they were sent out previously.
Okay.
It's a pack on the screen, Ros.
Yeah, the pack is on the screen.
Oh, is it? Okay, it will be there then.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I can't see it.
It seems to go straight on to the...
Do I need to stop presenting?
yeah, I think if we can have the minutes up there, that would be great.
Right, hang on a minute. Oh,
I've got officers update.
right, Chris, have you got yours up? Have you got?
I'll put the minutes out. I'll find them.
Okay, thank you.
Here we go.
We don't seem to, not quite sure what you put up, Chris, but it's not.
Sorry,
on
I
the-
wasn't ready for that. I thought they were.
Oh, okay. No.
I thought they were on the pack. So
Yeah, well, I did as well, so I haven't got them in front of me either.
okay. There we go. Can you see them?
Nope.
No, we've still got the. It looks like a reminder of the meeting that's up there at the moment. They probably need to unshare that and share the document that you've just put up on your screen.
Okay.
Chris, it's your reminder. It's got Chris Cribbin at the bottom of it.
Am I on? I'm on, aren't I?
Yes, Chris, you're sharing
Yeah.
the reminder at the moment.
Like your shirt, David.
Do you?
Nice
Thank
one.
you very much.
Wrong colour, mind you, but yeah. Anyway.
Oh,
Right. Okay.
Oh, we're back to the presentation.
Yeah, we've got the other presentation now, the Corin's presentation.
Which
Yeah.
was excellent.
Chair.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Councillor Robinson. Can I make a suggestion? Can I suggest that we move to another agenda item while
Yeah, that's probably a good
Chris
idea.
is sorting out the IT issue?
Okay, yeah, should we do that then? I think the next one is officers' updates. Thank you for that, Mark. And we'll come back to that as soon as we're ready. So we got the pack back up again. Good, thank you. So it's over to you then, Ros, I think, for this.
Yeah, so just an update. Oh, behave yourself. Just an update. Nick, do chip in. So we put the additional storage container in, and the welfare unit is being established and installed. Although we haven't put heating or anything in it at the moment, it's just being used as a meeting space. We're using it as a one officer space at the moment because of the coronavirus issues. So it's using it as a separate area for staff to be in. We've done most of the fencing of the compound and Cemetery Cottage. Nick, is there any more fencing to do, or is it all done?
The immediate stuff is all done at the moment.
Cool. The fountain was installed. Corin shared the picture, which was nice. We've completed the plans for the toilet and staff welfare facilities, and that's on the agenda. We haven't made any progress on the vault garden or the wildlife garden area. That's been halted over coronavirus. We did get a quote. The gates have been completed and installed, and we've had a quote for the gilding, which was a bit more than I'd said to councillors, so I have brought it back. For 465 for the top row of finials to be gilded. But I'm happy to go ahead and get that done if nobody's got any objections to that slightly higher figure.
Okay. Are you asking for a confirmation on that amount now, or is that that's not coming up later, is it?
No, it's not. It's not on the agenda. I mean, council's already said, go ahead and do it. But I think I said it would be about 350, but it's 100 more. So I just thought I'd bring it back.
Yeah. If we've got the money, the money for it, if we have, I would recommend that we accept that higher price.
Okay, so we'll see how we get on with our maintenance budget and whether we've got the money in there to do it.
Okay, so do you need a decision from us?
No, that's fine.
No, that's okay.
Nick, was there any other things you wanted to update people about?
It was just a couple of things that we were possibly looking at sort of doing a bit more improvement work for the cemetery. We had some costings put in for some chapel queue cushions. And we was also looking at the restoration of the Victorian beer, the old hand cart. But those were the two that we were sort of looking at possibly getting some approval for. And also the purchase of turf for the level graves that we are now levelling off.
Okay, so are those things we need to make decisions on, or are they coming up on an agenda item? Or presumably if they involve cost and they're not, well, they're under this agenda item, are they something that we can actually make a decision on now, or is it too early?
Maybe Nick, if you just want to go through the costs, we've got the money within the budget to do it, but we just want to run it through people to look beforehand.
Yeah.
Nick,
just bear with me one moment. I'm just trying to bring it up.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Chair, are you receiving the hands up?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it's quite difficult to concentrate on the meeting and notice the hands up as well. So who have we got? We've got I've got Chris Harvey going, and I've got you, Dennis. Sorry. So would you like to speak now, Dennis, please?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all right, David. You're new to the game, and it's out anyway at the best of times. So yeah, the vaulted gardens why have they been put on? I know you said it's because of this virus thing, but surely that we could try to move ahead with those, because there seems to be a lot of interest from people who, unfortunately, I talked to about people who have passed away. I had a friend very recently pass away last week, and they would like to have had a vaulted garden thing. So I think we're still missing an opportunity by not progressing it forward if possible.
We couldn't get any quotes, Dennis, during lockdown. None of the
Oh,
a lot of people have,
Oh, okay, they closed down, have they?
Yeah, so we weren't able to get any information and stuff. And then we've been overtaken with all the risk assessments and everything in terms of reopening.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for yeah, that's good.
So that's something you'll be picking up on, Ros, shortly, will you? Just
Yeah.
seeing who's open, and I'm sure
Yeah, and
people will
just
want to be getting going and be pleased to be giving quotes, I should think.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just to remind you that council said that you wanted to prioritise the vault garden over the wildlife area. So we'll basically do when we're going to do review of the priorities in a bit. So
Okay.
we'll come to that. Yeah. So basically, if it's when it's within budget, basically we're going to get some cushions made for the seating areas, and Nick's been getting quotes for those, and potentially restoring Victorian beer. Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, the quotes come in at £780. That was the cheapest quote. We had one for around about 1,000, but the cheapest one was a local upholsterer, and she's came back at 780 for all the pews to be cushioned in the chapel.
Okay.
The Victorian beer, we're looking at roughly around about £150 tops for that to be repaired. That we reinstated at the moment. It's got some old chrome rails which wasn't original on there, and it was put on at a later date. But we have our local sort of metal fabricator, and he's going to reinstate some traditional railings and some finials on there to put it back into character as it once was. Wonderful.
Well, that quote for the beer sounds very reasonable if they're doing sort of metalwork of that sort of stuff. Yeah. You said we had the money in the budget, didn't you, Ros?
Well, yeah, if we do, we also need to have a quote conversation about the cushions later on when we get to the reopening of the chapel, because we need to talk about whether we have it steam cleaned in between funerals and things, in which case, having the fabrics and things. So
yeah. So we'll revisit that one later then, the cushions. And the beer, do we want to approve the cost of that?
Yeah.
It sounds reasonable to me. Anybody else got any comments on that?
No, I agree with you, Chair.
Okay, that's good. Well, so so was that Dennis?
Yeah, that was me.
Carry on, Dennis.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just saying, I think it's a brilliant idea. The cost sounds fantastic. So
yeah, sounds really good.
Move it forward.
Okay, that's great. We've got agreement on that then. That's fine. And we'll revisit the cushions a later item.
Yeah. And Baber has redone all the flowers. I think I sent the pictures out to councillors during lockdown. So we've had all the floral arrangements updated.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing those. Yeah, look really good. So is that everything on officers' update?
Yep.
Okay.
Would you like to come on now?
Yes. If you've got the minutes, we'll.
Yeah. So I wonder, can you come off for a moment, Ross, please? There we go. The 16th of January, Chair.
Right, yes. Seems like a long way away now, doesn't it? Yeah. So if we go through anything on the first page.
There's a architect's quotes and the priority that they were going to be spent.
Right.
Policy, rules and regulations. Wall packs, which was just what we've been talking about earlier. Yeah. And that's for when funding. Yeah, so that's recommendation, and that's it.
Yeah, and these have all been approved at full council anyway.
They have indeed, yes.
The rest of it is appendix. Yeah. So we agreed on the minutes.
Thank you. Yep. I'll get out there now. Thanks. So over to you then, Ros.
And then we're moving on to the priorities, 142.20.
We're basically asking all committees just to have a look at their priorities to make sure that you're happy with the amount of work we've got going on, really, and just to update people where we're at in terms of whether we're we're delayed or not. So over to you guys. Are you happy with the priorities? Is there anything that you would like to change?
Okay, so the first one is the installation of the ashes wall. We're happy. That's one we said we were going to prioritise over the wildlife area, didn't we? So
yeah.
Is the Angler in Bloom competition still a thing that we're going to be entering? Is that happening? Is what I'm asking, really.
we are just doing. We're just doing. Sorry, got technical issues.
It's a modified scheme.
We're entering the virtual competition.
Okay.
So, which is free, which is quite nice.
Yeah. So that should be very achievable then, I think.
Yeah. But
next page begins with the improvements of the works area, which I think work has already started on that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of the stuff that we're doing ourselves, but I think it's we're looking at the tender for the other work later in the meeting, I think, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the chapel repairs are ongoing. Develop the Friends of Thetford Cemetery. That's probably, I think there are a few people we've already got who help us out, I think, and whether we're going to actually develop much, because in terms of social distancing, it might be a bit tricky. But we'll see.
Can I interrupt? Because going back to I did a hands up, but sometimes I'm a bit thing. Going back to see the works area.
Yeah.
Is there any money in there? Because our fence, I'd like it painted green so it doesn't clash with our new thing we're setting up with the
right.
World War I soldiers. I didn't know if there was any money left in the budget that we could maybe just paint that green on our, on the outside.
Have we got thoughts on that, Ros? Have we got money in the budget for that?
I think a mixed hedge would be nicer, planted in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maintenance cost is more, but okay, yeah, mixed hedge.
Yeah, hedge would be great, yeah.
Yeah, mixed hedge.
There's room for a hedge there, is there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, good idea.
What do you think, Nick? Would that be all right?
Yeah, definitely. That would look good.
Great, that's fantastic then. Thanks for that, Dennis. That's good.
Cheers.
Nick has raised another issue that we might have to be thinking about long term, about having a spoils area basically, and places to compost and stuff. And we're thinking that about bringing a more of a detailed costed proposal for creating an area at the bottom of the cemetery. Nick, do you want to say a little bit about it?
Yeah, that'd be good. Thanks.
Yeah, so one of the areas we possibly looked at, which wouldn't have too much of an impact on the cemetery as it stands, and it would be tucked out of the way, is the very left-hand corner as you're leaving the cemetery through the wooden gates to go back out onto the London Road. There's a little area just tucked to the left there, which is partly hedged, but we just need a bit more hedging around the perimeter just to sort of enclose that area. And then some gates to obviously secure it. But we were possibly thinking of that sort of area because obviously we've got a new contract to come on board, ID Verdi, and that's an area that we could have as a transfer site. Obviously, they're going to bring a lot of their stuff up as part of the contract now for disposal. And we could possibly have our skips and things tucked in there as well. So it'd be easier access for lorries so they don't have to keep coming across the car park. At the moment, they're coming across there to obviously access to get the skips from our yard. So that would sort of make a better transfer site, if you like, within the realms of obviously, like Ros says, composting, disposal of excess soil. It would make sense to obviously do that if it was approved.
Okay, I think we've got Dennis with the hands up again.
Yeah, sorry to be a nuisance today,
No,
but
that's fine.
Lots of things learning here. It's good. Now, would that be a hard standing area for this, or would it just be an area where you build kind of places to put compost and everything?
Ideally, it would be nice to have it concreted and bayed, but again, down to costings, it's whether it's viable and obviously cost effective to do that. We'd have to look into that a little bit more, I think, with costings.
So if we initially look at making sure it's enclosed, and then as finances become available, we can look to having some sort of concrete hard standing there. Does that look like a good way forward?
Yeah, I think definitely, David. That would be a good way forward. Yeah.
We're agreed on that. Great. Thank you. We're constantly on the lookout for an additional burial site, and so we'll. I don't know if there's any. I doubt if there's any progress on that. Is there, Ros? But
I think this is really one because we said that we didn't have the capacity really to develop it within the town council at the moment, but it was something that maybe we could push towards the DDP partnership officer.
Yeah.
Would that be something that maybe Mark could take forward?
What do you think, Mark?
Happy to take that.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, because Kingsfleet is the obvious place where it could happen, but I don't know what the land availability is there. But okay.
I just go back to D, the final of the chapel repairs, and
yeah.
I think if there was one priority that we might put on the back burner for this year, I think it might be that one.
Right.
Given what?
Okay.
But I don't know how councillors.
Are you thinking more of exploring the possibilities of using it as a wedding venue, or are you talking about the external repairs?
Really, because we've done the majority of the repairs. It's watertight, windtight. It was just some further stuff that we needed to do to finish the final look of it. So I'm just thinking if we put that off for another year, because we've got health and safety on the agenda later. The amount of work Nick and Kerry and stuff have been doing in the background is quite a lot. And so if we could reduce it, I think bit, I think it would be worthwhile.
Take that one off.
Okay, I think the fabric is in good condition, isn't it? It's just appearance.
Very good.
Now, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good suggestion, because we've got plenty to do, haven't we, at the moment?
Yes.
So is that everything on our priorities review?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to the budget update, 143.20.
I wonder if I can invite Alan in to help us.
Oh, is Alan with us?
Let's see if he'll come in.
Yeah, that would be great if we get to hear from Alan. Thank you.
We're going to trial this out because it's a nice way to use the Zoom meetings. The Teams meetings.
Yeah, big welcome, Alan. It's good to have you with us.
Yeah. So it's good news and bad news on the budget, definitely.
Right.
Actually, it's good news, really, because it's about Thetford have done really, really well this year in terms of deaths. We've got 16 burials in place, so we're obviously a lot healthier than we normally are. I think basically with all our infection control measures and things, and people aren't having accidents because they haven't been going out and about. So our income's significantly down really this year so far in the first half of the year.
Good and news for the community, but bad news for our budget.
Yes.
Okay, Alan, would you like to go ahead, Alan, and give us a bit of a commentary on this? That'd be great.
Is Alan there? Oh, I invited him, but I didn't.
Oh, I've got the chat up, so I can't see the participant.
He's been invited and he's accepted it. Should I get him on the phone?
No, let's just try again. See if he can come in. Well, maybe it's a signal issue.
Yeah. He has to come on, yes.
Well, it does say he's joined the meeting in the chat. So, are you there, Alan?
No, he hasn't joined. He's invited. He hasn't joined.
No, just in the chat. It says, Alan, you'll join the meeting down the bottom. So, but I can't see the participants without turning the chat on. Okay, well, I think we've had the headlines, haven't we? Of the is there any detail we need to look at, Ros? And if,
just to say as well, on our grass cutting, we've made significant savings.
Yeah.
Which will, you know, balance out the lack of income at the moment.
Yeah.
But you think it's once people start going out and about again, you know, that the income might increase. What we've always found for the cemetery is where we have a very low bit of income, we see an increase of deaths later on in the year to balance it out. So we've had this before, but it's Okay. But I don't know. This is exceptional circumstances.
Yeah. So we're not particularly worried at the moment. But, we just need to keep an eye on it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll move on unless there are any other comments. Let's look at the chat.
Chair.
Oh, hello, Mark. Yes.
Thank you. Can we go back to that slide? Thank you. Thank you for the update, Ros. I noticed that right at the bottom of the page, there's a strap about the budget being revised before September 2020, and there are significant changes due to COVID-19, which can't be easily identified at present. I just wondered when we would get sight of those and its possible impacts on the budget.
So that'll be the next cemetery committee, the next autumn one. So that will be looking at how much we've saved in terms of our bills and invoices and stuff for the chapel, because we've not been using it, we've not been heating it.
So it'd be positive changes, that there isn't any negative changes affecting the budget due to COVID.
Additional cleaning. At this stage. If we decide to reopen, there will be in terms of additional cleaning and things. Right. But again, we'll be discussing that later on the agenda.
Okay. Well, can I ask when the next time cemetery committee stands up?
I can tell you. If you give me a moment.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. So that strap line there, Ros, that's referring to our budget, not the full council or the.
I think it's across all of them, actually.
Yeah, okay. So it's just a general comment.
A general kind of just
but
heads up.
It would well affect us, yeah. Okay. Right, well, shall we, conscious that Chris is going to come back with the date so that he's got it, has he?
No, I haven't yet. I'll tell you.
Oh, okay. Well, shall we move on? Are you happy for us to move on, Mark? And then when Chris comes back, he'll let you know when the...
Yeah, well, I'm sure Chris can pin something out to us, but the reason around that is full council will look at those budgets in September.
Yeah.
And committee meets every 3 months, I believe, so it meets a month after that. So I just wonder if there's a mechanism for early sight for the committee.
Yeah.
Any budget changes.
That would be useful because normally it's the committees feeding into the full council, isn't it? And it's happens that way. It'll be the opposite way around, won't it? So
yeah.
But okay. So can we check that out, Ros, and see?
Yeah.
What we can do about that?
You can definitely just do it by email as well, so people can have it beforehand.
Can I just butt in, please? It's the 15th of October.
Okay, so you're right, Mark, that next meeting is after the full council, that will be looked at. Okay, so we need to note that, and as soon as you've got sight of that budget change, Ros, then, or proposed budget change, then you'll let us know and we can have an email discussion. Great, thank you very much. And we can move on, can we? Right, okay, I'm just having a quick look at the hands up situation, and I think we're okay. That's the budget update, and we're moving on to health and safety now. 144.20.
Yes, so can I just say a massive thank you to Kerry and Nick, who were our core team during those first few weeks of shutdown when things were very, very scary. And we were talking to the undertakers about, you know, the fact that the numbers for burials would be really, really limited. during that time, some authorities were shutting their cemeteries completely and not allowing the public in. They weren't allowing people to go to funerals. We worked on the funeral guidance on from the National Association, and when the government guidance was saying that, you know, people couldn't attend funerals at all, we didn't actually have to make those decisions during that time because we didn't have funerals actually in at that time. But we did get to the point where it was they were limiting it to 6 and friends and family. Anyway, there was with lots of conversations about it, and Nick and Kerry did an amazing job talking to the undertakers, and we went for the route of looking at on an individual risk assessment basis, that for every funeral that undertakers had to supply a risk assessment. They had to tell us the names of the people who would be attending. They had to confirm with us in writing that they were going to speak to everybody who was attending the funeral beforehand about social distancing and maintaining, you know, following the government guidance. So we gave them some guidelines around numbers, but we didn't enforce those numbers really, really strictly on account of the fact that we had individual risk assessments and that had to be done for all of them. Nick had to deal with a very difficult funeral where people turned up at the very early onset and had to manage a situation quite sensitively, which of course he did. But Nick and Kerry did a tremendous job, so I'd just like to thank them for all their help on that.
Yes, I'll add my thanks too. That's it sounds like you've done a great job there. Thanks very much.
Nick, Kerry, would you like to say anything about that period, because it was very difficult?
Yeah, no, I think we sort of battled through it together. It was always sort of a challenge, but one that we accepted that we had to do, and yeah, we both just sort of done it really. Yeah, thanks again to Kerry as well for your help and support me through it. Thank you very much.
We had to be quite firm with the undertakers, and we did say that if anyone didn't follow the guidance and didn't supply the risk assessments, there would be no funerals. And we have basically carried on that line with them, because we're now in this situation where people think it's over. And we're still saying no, that these risk assessments still apply. We still expect you to do this. Okay. And they have to notify if it's a COVID related funeral as well, so we know exactly what we're dealing with on the time.
Okay. So we're happy we've got that under control, and the funeral directors know where they stand on that. That's great.
Yeah.
Just Chair, have we had any COVID related funerals?
Nick, do you want to answer that one?
No, luckily not. Most of the COVID funerals have been going to the West Suffolk Crematorium. We've just had a couple of ashes interments, which was COVID related, but obviously they'd been to the crematorium first. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. And we need to talk about, do we reopen the chapel?
Yeah. So the government guidance has changed now in churches and stuff that you can open. There's the Church of England have produced some really, really good guidance in terms of risk assessment and managing it, in terms of social distancing, in, out, providing hand sanitation and washing facilities. We would have to measure up against how many people we're allowing by the graveside to how many people we're allowing in the chapel. So we would have to limit numbers in the chapel and things as well. But first of all is, do we want to reopen the chapel? And if so, there may be additional costs with that, because the best thing to do, and Mark advised on this because of your background, is they've got these steam clean functions now that you can go in and you can just basically steam the building, and it's sterile for 28 days if it's locked again. So rather than create an awful lot of work for Nick and the team to do a full clean down, I would recommend that we get a quote from a company to go and do the steam clean and add that on to the cost of the rental of the chapel during COVID.
Yeah, I've got a hands up from Dennis.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm questioning whether opening the chapel would be a good idea, because it does incur more cost. I don't know what steam cleaning would cost, but I shouldn't think it'd be very inexpensive at the time. So, and would people want to hire it at the extra cost? And we would be limited to the amount of people we could have in there too. So,
have we had requests, Roz?
Well, because it goes through it goes through the undertakers, and the undertakers knew that the chapel was closed. I don't know what.
So we don't know whether there's a demand or not.
Yeah. Nick, do you know?
There's been a couple of instances when the undertakers have arrived at the cemetery and they've questioned me sort of on the off chance, do we know if it's going to open?
Okay.
And I just said at the moment, due to the COVID, we are obviously closed at the moment until further notice.
Yeah.
But I think possibly Kerry may have had also an inquiry from one of the funeral directors as well. I'll just let Kerry come in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've also had an inquiry from an undertaker to find out whether the chapel will be reopening.
What's your thoughts, Nick? Can we reopen it safely? Can we manage that?
I think we could manage it as long as we've got the correct sort of PPE up there, in the sense of the dispensers for the hand sanitizer for people. And obviously we limit it on numbers, and with an agreement with the funeral director when they're organising and arranging the funeral, that they explain to the family if they do want to hire the chapel, we are limited on numbers. I think it could possibly be managed.
We've got hands up from Mark Robinson. Would you like to come in, Mark?
Yeah, thank you. I actually want to take this in a slightly different slant, because we're focusing on cost, but I don't think we should lose sight actually that this is a difficult time for residents.
Yeah.
It's the loss of a loved one, and I know people have struggled. I've actually I attended a funeral cortege recently, and I saw how distressed relatives were. They weren't actually able to go and share their last a few moments with the deceased. The process Ross is talking about is called fogging, and the disinfectant, she's quite right. It would disinfect the whole area for 28 days. There might be an increased cost for us and undertakers because of the increased measures, but it seems to open up the chapel to support residents at a difficult time is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And with other non-essential businesses that have come online recently, the shops, the 15th of June, the hospitality sector, and you're looking at parts of leisure on the 25th. This is another amenity where we're able to assist the community return back to some form of normal. So I'm supportive of actually ticking the boxes, making sure we get everything in place.
Okay, Dennis has got something to say. Would you like to? I'm not sure if it's on the same thing that Mark has just been saying or different.
No, absolutely. I agree with Mark. If we can help our people of Thetford with anything like this, it's important. If it's manageable within, the costs and everything, I would be very much in support of reopening the chapel.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, I support that as well, and I think Nick has said that it's possible for us to do it. We accept there are increased costs, and I think I personally I would like to do it without increasing the cost to the public as a public service at this time. But obviously, we've got an opportunity to review that in October when we meet, if we decide that we can't afford the costs. Depends on what the costs are, of course. I mean, if we do go for this steam cleaning thing and it's prohibitively expensive, then we might have to have another think. Mark, is fogging, is that an expensive process, or is it?
Well, it's not. I would suggest Ross get the quote. It's not something I do within my business. So I wouldn't like to say is the short answer, Dave.
Yeah, I just wonder whether it was going to add significantly to our costs. That's all. But that's fine. I understand that. So we need to look at the costs. So I think in principle we're saying we would like to open the chapel. I mean, is that? Dennis has just left his room, I think. But,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You're there.
Okay, we will start putting mechanisms in place to get the chapel reopened. It's quite, because we've got the Church of England documentation on managing, safe reopening of worship buildings. I think we've got a really good template to work towards and get going.
And you'll keep us informed by email on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we have some information about what the cost of fogging is? Because you're hiring a man, that's never cheap, and equipment at the time. So,
yeah,
I mean, if we can absorb it, all well and good, but I have an idea that it's going to hit into our budget absorbing it like that.
So that's something we want to do as soon as possible, I guess, is it?
Yeah, I
okay.
think so.
We're all in agreement with that, councillors.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Has that covered everything under the chapel?
Just before you go, it's Chris here. Is this to be resolved or a recommendation to the committee, to the full council, please?
Just noted that the councillors agreed that they wanted the chapel open as soon as possible.
Just noted. No. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think we've got another item under health and safety, haven't we? Is that it's a different agenda item, yeah. So we'll move on to 145.20, which is numbers and water testing.
Kerry, do you want to do the first bit?
And I'm conscious I think we've only got 10 minutes left, haven't we?
Right, okay.
11 we finish?
Okay, well,
okay, we've got 11:30, David.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's all right. We're not under too much pressure then. That's all right.
So this is Kerry's report then at the beginning. It just said that she's under by 16 so far. So we'll have they'll be useful to have those extra numbers later on in the year, I'm sure.
Right.
The water monitoring report was circulated in June the 2nd, and there's no issues. So.
Yeah, it looked very similar to the previous one I've seen, so I don't think there's any issues there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's received. Unless there's any comments from councillors, we'll move on. 146.20, peace comes to Thetford, and we've had a very good presentation already. So there was, I think, a proposal from Mark, wasn't there? I think.
That's correct. The proposal was that we delegate the chair in conjunction with the cemetery manager to work with, I apologise, the name of the group escapes me at this stage, but to work with the group to deliver the project.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it's Leaping Hare who are managing it, so it's working with Leaping Hare, I suppose. But it's the Forgotten Soldiers. Oh, peace comes to Thetford, isn't it?
Yes.
Can I just say that we committed the works team's time to doing the installation. However, if there is any additional sort of costs, whether it's cement or levelling or a digger, we might need to think about just allocating a contingency fund for them to use it if additional stuff is needed for.
Yes, so Mark's proposal, do we need to have that? We need to have that seconded, don't we?
Yes, please.
I've got my hands up there.
Oh, sorry, Dennis.
Dennis.
That's all right. Again, I'm a bit like our previous chair. I think that delegating everything to just the chairman to do it is not good. I think you need more people in there. But as we're such a small committee now, wouldn't it be open for everybody to come along and help work with it to a point?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great to have a small group, but you make the point that we are a small group at the moment.
Anyway, yeah.
Rather than saying the whole committee, because we are, hopefully, we're going to recruit a few more people for this committee, because I think it's going to be quite difficult to run with just 3 people.
Agreed.
I mean, it means everyone's got to turn up, or the mayor has got to turn up to make us
Yeah.
quorum. So I'd be happy to expand the group. I mean, Mark's suggestion was chair. Maybe we could say chair and vice chair.
Yeah, I would like
and a cemetery manager.
Yeah.
Sounds a good idea.
Yeah, you're happy with that, Mark? Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Ros mentioned delegated powers as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
So this committee would have to agree what those delegated powers are at this stage, probably.
I mean, the officer's got the powers to make, changes and stuff to the site.
Yeah.
So So I guess it would be that the officer would be making, Nick would be working with them to make the decision. So but it's again, if you want additional funding, if we get stuck, then we would need to call a meeting to agree anything extra there.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, carry on, Mark.
I do apologise for interrupting, but just to make you aware, Councillor Harvey's rejoined the meeting.
I just noticed it. Yeah. Well, welcome back, Chris.
Yeah. I've noted that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we need to stop talking about him?
Yeah, we do.
Can't do that.
Yeah, Chris, we were just talking about the Peace Comes to Thetford project. We're on that item 14620. And Mark made a proposal that we should have a delegated working group. And we've just been discussing and we've agreed that it should be the chair, deputy chair and the cemetery manager. And Ros has just said that the cemetery manager has, we talk about delegated powers, and the cemetery manager has delegated powers to make changes in the structure of the cemetery. But I was just about to make the point that Corinne, on a couple of times in her presentation, said she wasn't actually asking for any money, but it would be quite good to have a contingency, I think, with just in case there was something that we needed to pay for. So Dennis has got his hands up.
You've just taken what I was going to suggest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well done.
Right, we're getting some sort of synergy here then, working together. Yeah, okay, so the proposal, I think, from did you have a sum in mind, Ros?
I think I suggested up to 500.
Right, I thought that was in my mind. I thought that's what you might have said. So are we agreed that we've got the money in the budget for that, presumably? It'd be out of the maintenance budget, would it?
It'll have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have to put Mark's thing to a vote? Because I'll second his proposal.
Yeah, we should do.
Was there a second for it? Did you second it, Dennis, or not?
Yeah. Yes. Please.
Okay.
So I just read then it's to have the delegate the chair, the chairman, and the cemetery manager to work with Peace Comes to Thetford Group to deliver the project up to £500.
And vice chair, Chris.
Yeah, it's chair and vice chair.
Chair and vice chair, got it. Yeah. Yes, I.
Okay.
Yeah. So is that all right? So
yeah.
I'd like to call a vote out. The voting is then Councillor Crawford.
In favour.
Councillor Hodgkinson.
In favour.
Councillor Robinson.
Yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Agreed.
Okay, that's resolved and finalised. Thank you.
That's unanimous then. Are there other things we want to say about the Peace Comes to Thetford and what Corinne had to say to us?
Is there a bit at the end where we can do it as a community communication thing?
I imagine there will be some dedication or whatever. I think there will be an event. I mean, I know that there were some events built in, but I'm not sure if there's one at the end. But can you remember that, Ros?
There's a committee officers update. You can get it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Corinne talked about doing it for remembrance.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Remembrance. So I'm sure that they'd like to do some sort of remembrance event at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be liaising with with Corinne about it anyway, won't we? So we'll that's something we can bring up. Thanks for bringing it up, Dennis. Any other questions about Peace Comes to Thetford? I think mainly we're going to be waiting for Corinne to come back to us with her more detailed proposals, aren't we?
Yeah.
I'm sure we can have other comment and we can have conversations with her that we initiate as well.
Yeah.
Okey-dokey.
Agree.
Just having a quick look at the notes I made when Corinne was on. I think we were in agreement in principle with the grave markers, weren't we?
Yes.
And the site and yeah, okay. And there's we're not sure about the paved area yet. That's the other thing. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we will move on to 147.20 committee structure, and I think it says to discuss and agree, but I don't think we are agreeing, because I think it's full council who will agree on the revised committee structure, and so I think we are just looking at the proposals and reporting back to the personnel committee. Is that right, Ros?
Yeah, I mean the issue that we talked about at cemeteries and for allotments is that I think what we said is that they were good committees, they work well, working well, but being core-rate is an issue because they're so small. And I think one of the proposals was that they actually became one committee with a divided agenda.
Yeah. We haven't actually got the documentation for that in this pack, have we?
I sent it out separate
I know
email.
it came out separately, yeah, but I think all of the proposals, apart from the first one, which was to make no changes, are suggesting that Cemetery and Allotments Committee merge, and that it's a sort of like 50-50 agenda. Was there any indication of how long those meetings would be? I mean, and would we only have? Would there be more of them in a year? I can't remember. I haven't got the document in front of me now.
I think that would be up for debate and discussion, really. The other thing with the allotments, but we're talking about allotments there, but a lot of the allotments work was actually then starting to happen outside of the allotments committee with the allotments representative.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So so that the allotments meetings were being quicker because we were tending to deal with more issues outside of the meetings.
Yeah. And I mean, the other misgiving I have as well is that when we merge the two committees, initially there will be people who have more of a focus on one area than another, and they might sort of sit back a bit. But I mean, for instance, I don't really know much about the allotments, and I'm not sure how interested I would be in that part of the agenda. So that, but I guess over time that will change, because it will be an overall view, and people coming onto the committee will have that perspective when they arrive.
Can I just answer your question there? They're basically the same people that's on there. They were the same 5 people, and now
okay.
3 people.
And so, yeah, the majority of the people are on both committees, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm an exception.
You're an exception, and Colin Burnett is on allotments.
No, he's on allotments, but not on cemeteries. Yeah.
David, I put a hands up there.
Yes, carry on. I think I think Chris has got something to say as well. I think.
Yeah,
I'm just a minute before you, but go ahead, Dennis, as you're speaking, and we'll go back to Chris.
Oh no, go to Chris first, because he missed out on most of the meetings. So.
Okay, Chris, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. I have reservations about the committee structure. We've had some issues come up with cemetery before. I believe we should have at least 2 extra cemetery meetings a year than what we do. Myself and Dennis went up to meet with some residents up at Pine Close, which some time ago, which is to do with cemetery issues. And we haven't had a cemetery meeting to discuss this for about 2 months after. So the possibility of having extra cemetery and allotment meetings, to my mind, is a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, Dennis.
Right, I can see pros and cons on both of these, on combining these 2 committees. They do have some relationship to each other. We share some of our ground staff and everything between the two units. And it would be helpful, but and having less committees is probably a good thing in a way. But the thing being is, one, as Chris has said, we need to have more meetings per year than we do now with the two. And the second thing is, one of the reasons these committees work so well is they're small. As a committee structure grows and more members take place, although I'm never against people being members of any committees, it is harder to get decisions. So those are my opinions on that.
Yeah. I would say too as well that some of the suggestions, one of the suggestions definitely is correct. I think it's creating another committee or taking responsibilities from two of the other committees. And then one of them, I think, is looking at managing properties and events, I think it is. And I just wondered whether that would include the chapel, whether that would be, because I think it's about a marketing and promotional thing. So whether that would be hived off to another committee. So the cemetery committee would. I don't think
there was any plans to move the chapel across to that one.
Plans,
it would stay with cemetery.
And also, there seems to be a little bit of a misfit in that cemetery seem, well, I'm not sure, but I think cemetery are having quite a lot of conversation about the works yard, and that works yard isn't just for the work of the cemetery. So would that still, considerations about the works yard, would that be part of the cemetery committee's remit? In a way, you would imagine it would fall under personnel, as it's about sort of staff and welfare and a lot of the stuff. But I don't know really.
Could look at doing that. We could move over to.
I'm just not quite sure how looking at the proposals, and I suppose it depends which one, because there were, I think, five proposals or 5 possibilities, and I know option 4 was the one being recommended in a way, I think. But I don't know. I wasn't quite sure how the fit would happen and what things would move where. So
I think this was an opportunity for each committee, to say this is what would work for cemeteries. This is what we would want cemeteries to look like.
Yeah, well, my initial thought is that I would prefer cemetery to stay alone and not be part of allotments, but I'm willing to be convinced on that. Just wondered if Mark had anything to say about that, because I know you've done a bit of work on this in the past in personnel. Anything to say, Mark?
Sorry, I was just unmuting myself.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sorry about that. No, I welcome the options going forward. The only thing I'm mindful of is that committees work in silos, and I'm of the belief that we as councillors in our committee silos don't have an overview of what whole council's doing. So I would actually look to have a committee where the chairs got together to have an overview, not to usurp any other committee. But I do believe there should be more collaboration. You've highlighted, for instance, the chapel. The marketing and the promotion of town council facilities and events lies within another committee. So there needs to be more of that cross collaboration going on.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've quite nailed that yet. So that would be my only comment going forward. It'd be useful for councillors to have an overview. Not every. I don't believe there's any council that sits on all committees.
I do.
Apart from Dennis. So Dennis is probably the only one that has an oversight of everything. So we're now going to ask Dennis everything. So that'd be my take on it.
Okay. Lovely, thanks. I mean, I don't. Chris Crimin has asked, can I give the meeting dates for these meetings?
Well, yeah, you were talking about the meeting dates for both these cemeteries and allotments. They're always 4 times a year. This year, the April one was a problem with the COVID and so on.
Yeah, so we lost that one. Yeah.
So for the rest of the year, we've got October, January, and April next year. They're every quarter.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes cemetery, when I go back a few years, sometimes cemetery didn't even meet for a whole year. They were just as and when. But now they're in there for quarter.
Yeah. I mean, I think the issue is when, as was already mentioned, that when we have a query from the public or something, it's quite a big gap sometimes if it needs a committee decision.
Yeah.
For that to come to it takes 3 months basically if it happens immediately after a meeting. So that, I can't quite remember in the proposals whether it was intended that a joint committee would meet more often. Got a feeling it might have been 6 times a year, but I could be wrong. I haven't got the proposals in front of me at the moment. So, do we need to say any more, or have we covered this one? I'm happy to move on if the other councillors are.
Okay. Just to say that I'm with you. I think keeping the 2 committees separate would be a good idea. But if we don't, and we do decide to put the 2 together, we definitely need to meet more often. That's my opinion.
Right. I appreciate that one of the drivers for the changes is about managing officer time in a better way as well, and so we need to think about that as well. I don't know if Ros has got a view on if we did combine. Is it reasonable for us to meet more often, or is that going to put a strain on officers again?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I see you just got. Ros has just put in the chat. Do we need more meetings or clearer delegated powers? That's a good question. Chris has said both. So
do you just want to summarise, Dave, the views of cemeteries for this?
Yes, okay. I'm just going to say goodbye to Mark because he's got to go to another meeting. Thanks for your input, Mark. Yeah, to summarise, I think I was hoping someone would be taking notes on that, and I guess Chris probably has. But I think the main summary is that I think all of the councillors, all 3 of the cemetery councillors, I'm not including Mark in this, said that they preferred to stay as a separate committee. But if we were joining together with allotments, then we would like to have more meetings than 4 a year, and also that it might be good to have clearer delegated powers as well, which is something that was put in there. Have I covered everything, or have I missed things?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
no, that's right. Thank you.
That's okay, is it? Good.
Should we make that as recommendation from this committee to the?
Well, I think they were just asking us to report back.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's fine.
We just report that back to personnel, and
that
will go into the mix, no doubt. I'm not sure if there's a time scale on this committee restructuring, or whether it's just ongoing. Any ideas, Ros, on that?
I think they're looking at it the autumn once all the committees have had their say.
Okay, so there'll be another recommendation for personnel, probably. Yeah. Okay. Friends of Thetford Cemetery, 14820, and I think we touched on this very briefly in the priorities, didn't we?
Yeah, it's in the priorities. Jenny and Brenda were doing work on this, and I think they've recruited about 4 volunteers.
Oh, okay.
To get involved, particularly kind of in the floral anglia and bloom type thing. This was really on the agenda to talk about what the relationship with the Friends would be with the cemetery committee.
Right.
So obviously, when they're thinking about setting up their own independent constitution with separate bank account, because what they want to do is raise funds for the cemetery, cemetery projects. And so I guess they would be an independent group, but they would be reporting to the cemetery officer, possibly to Nick. Do you think?
Yeah, well, yeah. That's. I mean, I didn't realise that was what they were thinking of doing, but yeah.
And obviously the cemetery committee as well. They need to come back and you
Yeah,
know,
well-
have their plans.
Yeah, we need to know what they're planning to do,
Yeah.
because I mean it's a bit different because we've got this volunteers group for the that Mark runs, and that's a
Yeah.
very different thing. That's a council run thing, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and very much directed from the council. This would I mean they might want us to direct them in a few areas, but it sounds as though they want to be able to have their own destiny in some way. So that we would have to carefully think about how that works. So is there much more we can say about this? Because I don't really know much about
Well,
it.
Just from my point of view is on
Yeah,
the Friends of Cemetery, is that it's great to have the help and everything and all, but I think we have to be very careful that we keep control of what they're doing and everything, because I've heard talk of people coming and cleaning graves and all kinds of things like that with the Friends of Thetford Cemetery. And, you know, so the officer would be the one that I would think would look after this, but
Yeah.
having too much for them to be too independent may cause problems in the future.
Yeah.
Anything that they would do would have to probably sit within our priorities. So when we do our annual planning, if they want to raise funds to, I don't know, for a sculpture, an art sculpture,
Yeah.
they want to fund, that would have to then be in our priorities as well.
Okay.
So they would have to ask us. So they'd have to mirror each other.
Yeah.
But, so we're just basically, we'll obviously need to check with Brenda and Jen whether they still want to do this. But if they do, then we would then have to bring back the constitution and other bits and pieces and look to see how they would work together.
Okay. Yes, that's yeah. It's an interesting one.
Well, diplomatic, Dave.
Yes. Well, it'd be great to have people who are working on behalf. I mean, going back to the thing about cleaning graves, it really depends what they're doing. If they're talking about just going over and brushing the grass off with a hand brush, that's one thing. If they're talking about using chemicals to clean years of staining or something, then that's a completely different kettle of fish, and it would be a specialist who'd have to do that. So I think we just need to know the detail of what they're thinking of, really. So
as Chris said earlier, Chris and I had a meeting with quite a few angry residents of Thetford in the past, and it emphasised to me that graves are very personal, and people don't like other people mucking with them at all, even our staff. So you know, it is very difficult. Mm-hmm.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Right, we better move on, I think, because we've only got 15 minutes left, and I suspect the allotments people will come and boot us out. So that's moving on to 149.20 cemetery improvements.
So I've sent out some of the tender documents. Sorry it was short notice, but I got them from Mark quite late. So we're basically looking to the chapel toilet is minimal impact toilet. So we're not going to dry line it because it's a historic building. You don't have to follow a lot of the building control type things and we want to maintain as much of the historical integrity of the area anyway. So we're looking at putting in a disabled suitable toilet in there with minimal impact on the actual historic building.
Right.
So that's that one. And then the refurbishment of the toilet block, that's the shower and staff facilities for next. And then the other one was the hard surfacing and trenches around the chapel. I think that we have done with the majority of the fencing, so I have to go to Mark and get him to take that bit out. But apart from that, and Mark noted that we'd put in Norwich Road instead of London Road, so we need to change that too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I noticed. I think in one of the documents it referred to things that were in the tender document, and on one of the other documents it said work to be done prior to this work carrying out, and I think that was slightly at conflict. But I think that's what you just talked about. It was in one and not the other. And there was one. I read through it and I thought it was a very, very comprehensive document, and it seems to have been worked through extremely well and very professionally. And so I would be happy for that to go forward. I mean, you were saying that we won't use that form of documentation. It goes into our own format of documentation. I think
there's just one sheet that we do that's our cover sheet. No, actually, normally we duplicate. We let them leave theirs in, and then we just put ours on top as the number one, really. So.
And I did notice one word that was slightly either out of context or I don't realise what the staff are going to be doing down there. It mentioned play, and I think it was probably cut and pasted from something about a play area, something about a service. So if you do a search for play in one of them, assuming we're not with play area. So Chris on the phone, is it okay? Yes. What do you need from us, Ros? Do you need us just to say that we're happy with that documentation and it can go forward?
Lost you.
Yeah, sorry, Ros. Your sound is breaking up.
My signal maybe go ahead. So we get a resolution to say that the tenders are approved for advertising.
Yeah. If there are no other questions from councillors, then happy to do that.
Agreed.
Is that unanimous? Is that everybody?
Agreed, yeah.
Right, Chris, thank you. So that's unanimous.
Can I have a proposal and a seconder, just for the records, please?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm happy.
Yeah,
Dennis proposing, was it?
Dennis, yeah. Seconder?
Yeah, I'll do it. But my
Thanks, Chris, yeah. Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
That's great. Thank you. Is there anything else on cemetery improvements, or is that's the whole thing, is it? So we'll move on to the 150/20, which is the sculpture trail.
So this is the BFER project with the Arts and Sculpture Trail. We've re-looked at the route, and we're proposing to change it and to bring it through the cemetery.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to make sure that the cemetery committee were happy with that.
In principle, I'm happy with it, but have we thought about the problem that the cemetery gates aren't always open?
Oh. No, I hadn't, Dave. Good point.
So if you attempt to do the trail in the evening, or I doubt many people will do it very early in the morning. Then they won't be able to actually complete the trail, so they might need an alternate route.
Yeah,
the cemetery is closed. But
good point.
Is it? Well, in the winter it closes earlier as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
So that's the only comment I would have on that, but I would welcome it going through there, because I think it's a significant historic part of the town.
Absolutely. Well said.
Cool.
Okay, so is that all we need to say? We're in favour of it, but there's a slight practical difficulty at some times. Okay, cemetery fees and conditions 15120. Agree the fees, terms and conditions, and booklet.
So there isn't any changes in the booklet in terms of fees and anything, and there isn't any changes in our actual rules and regs, and all we've done is changed the format. So Nick did an awful lot of work with the photographs, and he's put a load of stuff in there and other information. Really, it's to ask councillors to read through it and send us back any comments or changes.
Okay. So we agree the fees because they haven't changed, so that's quite easy for us to do if we're happy with that.
Yeah.
But the actual booklet, we don't have to agree the content of the booklet. Well, I suppose we can agree it provisionally and then come back to it with comments.
Yes, yeah. It's basically
most of the content is similar, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's enlarged and beautified, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was changing language. It was that kind of thing. So it's just let's get this kind of get it rounded off.
No, that's great. Yeah, the only comment I would have is that it's quite a long document, and I'm not sure whether we're expecting people to print this out when they get it, or just look at it online, or whether we're going to print the booklet out and make it available. And I just wondered whether we should just have a shorter document just with the costs in.
Yep.
Just a suggestion. We might need a bit more than just the costs, but it's 24 pages, and if we had sort of 2 or 3 pages with just a sort of brief version of it, that might
Yeah.
be useful. But that's my comment at the moment. Any other councillors got comments?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, very briefly. Yeah, don't the funeral directors give a copy of this out to the to each funeral, people doing the funeral?
They do. Yep.
Yeah, they give a copy of our handbook to each funeral they're organising. So, you know, they do have a chance without having to do it online or anything with to see all the conditions and terms. I know it's probably a wrong time to give a 24-page document to somebody to try to digest, but it's a necessity in a way. Yeah. So, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So do we print them out and give them to the?
No,
they just have an electronic copy. The funeral directors, do they?
Kerry, are you still there? You give them a section to. It's the terms and conditions you get them to sign, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
and
okay.
there's an electronic version of the booklet as well.
So yeah, so I think we probably do need to edit it so we have a smaller and longer version. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Nick, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's a good idea to sort of shorten it down, just sort of like you say, briefly sort of cover the costings and bits and the immediate stuff, and then obviously the other bits can come along elsewhere.
Well, the other thing, have we, as it goes to the funeral directors and they're a key player in what happens at the cemetery, have we actually given them a copy of this draft
We
to
should
have a look at and comment back on us?
Yeah, let's do that. Once we've
that-
gone through this one, I think that's the next stage, really.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay then. So that's agreed. Any other comments from councillors? Are we happy with that?
Happy.
Okay, good. And then 15220, correspondence and complaints. We've got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For 2 items.
Nick, Kerry, do you want to say anything about those? We constantly get the little bits about the fact that we've roped up the memorials. Kerry's very good at explaining it and sending out information about why we're doing it and what we're doing it for. And then we've had quite a lot of correspondence with the undertakers around risk assessments, obviously. And you've heard from the Forgotten Soldiers Project, Kerry's been and Nick have both been helping Corin with the research for that project.
Okay. So it's just that 1 page, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course we've had the verbal comment from Joy about the grass that we're going to follow up, aren't we?
Yeah. Nick, do you want to say anything about that grass cutting issue? Because I can't see what we could do about it, really.
It's a very difficult one. It's since being up in the cemetery for quite some time now, it's constantly a complaint we tend to get from a lot of people. It's very awkward for the contractor because obviously they'll do the initial grass cutting, followed by the strim around the stones. And it's the strimming around the stones that's obviously creating the bit of grass that goes onto the plinth of the stone. Every cemetery has this problem ongoing. I liaise quite closely with other cemeteries and staff, and when I chat to them, they just sort of raise their eyebrows if I sort of visually see them, or say on the phone that obviously they've come across the same problem as well. But yeah, it's a constant complaint we're getting.
Okay, so there's no easy solution.
Not really. No.
And I think that, I'm just wondering whether maybe that would be something that we can talk to the potential friends that may be a service they may want to offer. And there's something in the chat from Chris. Oh, is it? Sorry. Have you got a question, Chris?
Chris Harvey.
Yeah, Chris
Just
Harvey,
the fact
sorry.
that I did the health and safety before. Do you want me to carry on for the next year?
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, we did deal.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay,
We're
no
happy for
problem.
that to happen.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Right, lovely. Okay, so I don't think there's much more. Is there any follow-up that we need to do from that correspondence? I think Kerry
No.
has dealt with most of it already, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, that's good. So we're on to our last item, committee officers update.
Which I've got nothing that hasn't been on the agenda. Have you got anything, Nick, that we haven't covered?
No, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think we've covered most things.
Wonderful officers.
Great. Well, that's
Well,
well. I'll if there's nothing else to be said.
I'm going to turn the recording off, Chair, if that's all right,
Okay.
and start the other one, the other meeting.
Oh, okay. Right. We'll call this meeting to a close. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. See you later.